So, in my opinion, I think that we can look back and say that mission was mostly accomplished. Like, there are still instances where blacks experience discrimination and racism, but there are also so many instances where you see African Americans thriving and where they wouldn't have been able to during the Harlem Renaissance. And we've come pretty far, because if you look back at Langston Hughes' Weary Blues poem, you can see like he was talking about hearing a man singing about his loneliness and his sadness about being like discrimination and racism, and feeling like he's not being heard, and people are just listening to his music, not understanding like the lyrics. And now we have so many different actors and actresses that are African American, and Beyonce was the first black woman headlining at Coachella, and it was one of the biggest performances, and it meant so many different things to so many different African Americans around the world, and it was just a big step. And you see so many different things like that still about how African Americans to this day are inspiring others and are making big statements and everything like that. But you also still see racism, and there are still people who see a different kind of hierarchy with whites and African Americans, and so we still need to work on different racism things, and it just depends on who you are. There's not many people that are still believe in like that kind of whites are higher up and better than African Americans, but there still are people. And I would say that those who started this mission 100 years ago, that they've made the foundation for every African American in the US today. They set the stage, they built up that strong foundation of equal rights, and it made their community stronger, and it made the United States look at African Americans and accept them and respect them a lot more. So I think that all their work was not for nothing, and they made a big difference in the long run. Maybe it didn't seem like that during the Harlem Renaissance, but in the long run it was a big step and there's a big strong foundation now. Then we have many different laws that show like equal rights, but some people still don't believe in that, and there's still like stereotypes about African Americans. And in Langston Hughes' Minstrel Men poem, there you can see like whites would dress up as African Americans and put on this show with a lot of smiling and dancing, but that's not how, like, that's how they were they saw African Americans during that time. But that was only because African Americans were afraid to show like their real emotions, so because they were afraid that whites would harm them or attack them or anything, so they always were just smiling so that nothing would happen. Like, they were, because they were scared, so they smiled, and that's how the whites thought that they were just goofy and silly. But we don't have that kind of stereotypes now like that. It's more like I feel like whites will see like, oh, African American walking down the street, and it might look suspicious, and like that's just a stereotype that a black person could harm you, like if they're dangerous or anything. And I feel like there's so many different people that believe that, like, that if you see like an African American walking down the street by themselves, like it's kind of scary, which it shouldn't be like that. Like, you shouldn't have to feel scared, and that's stereotyping. It's stereotyping that African Americans are harmful, and they're not. And there's also like the whole Black Lives Matter movement, where like police were go after African Americans, where it seemed like that, and they thought that they were doing something bad, that's like out of stereotyping, and so that's something that we need to work on as well. So you have all the laws that show like on paper we're equal, everybody is equal, but there's also like different, so there's stereotypes, there's like wage gaps between like unfair pay, like unequal pay between whites and African Americans, which is also for women too, but that's a whole different thing. But I think in the big picture, since the Harlem Renaissance, we have grown so much. There's so many different famous like Black actors and actresses and singers like Beyonce, Eddie Murphy, Queen Latifah, Will Smith, Jennifer Hudson, like Oprah. Like there's so many different influential people now in our day, and they are all like speaking up for the African American community. And I think that every year I think it's getting better every year, and in 100 years who knows what it will be, but I believe that it will be equal, and I hope that is equal. But since the Harlem Renaissance, we have come a long way. We're not still there 100%, but the Harlem people have definitely set the best foundation, and they fought for the rights, and it was successful.